Hello, everyone, and welcome. Some of the stories we have for you right now. Donald Trump pushes his plan to take over Gaza at a critical meeting with Jordan's king.
It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it.
The president's demands with a fragile ceasefire hanging in the balance.
As the whole world is watching two closest friends about to wage an economic war.
Inside the campaign in D.C. to prevent a full-blown trade war.
It's really about higher prices, creating a black market.
All the ingredients for a major heist, from olive oil to eggs, why thieves are targeting food.
We're expecting 20 to 40 centimeters. It could be more, and people need to be ready.
Plus, bracing for a brutal blast of winter, where the storm will strike hardest.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
A key meeting today at the White House between Donald Trump and Jordan's King Abdullah. The two leaders discussed the future of Gaza and the Palestinians. And once again, the U.S. president threatened a tough response if the remaining Israeli hostages are not released by Saturday. Let's bring in CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon. And Joy, Trump and Jordan's king spoke privately, and then they spoke to the media publicly. Last week, Abdullah said he rejected the idea of annexing Gaza. That was Trump's idea, and also relocating the Palestinians. What was said today?
Sandy, this was really remarkable. It really felt like Jordan's King Abdullah was walking into the lion's den. But in the Oval Office, he told President Trump that Jordan will take in 2,000 Palestinian children who are very sick or who have cancer and very ill, and that Jordan will provide medical treatment. And that seemed to move President Trump, who called it a beautiful gesture. Trump's been pushing Jordan and Egypt to take in some 2 million Palestinians from Gaza, and that it would be a permanent resettlement. Trump even threatened to slash more than $1 billion in aid if they don't do it. Well, today, he backed off of that threat. Here's what the president said.
I don't have to threaten that. I think we're above that. I do believe we're above that. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
And Joy, Trump also issued another threat, and that is when he said today that all bets are off if Israeli hostages aren't released by Saturday. Did he clarify what he means?
No, he didn't, Sandy. He's been very angry at the appearance of the hostages, their health, and he demanded that they all be released, and he doubled down on his threat against Hamas. But he wouldn't say exactly what America would do. Take a listen to this.
They're bullies. Hamas is bullies. The weakest people are bullies. They either have them out by Saturday at 12 o'clock or all bets are off.
Sandy, this is a president who wants to be known as a peacemaker. He desires the Nobel Peace Prize, and he wants to expand the Abraham Accords that normalize relations between Israel and the Arab states. This is Trump's vision for the Middle East, Sandy, and he's not about to back down.
All right, Joy, thank you for this. Okay, let's focus now on Donald Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs, which go into effect on March the 12th. That is what he is threatening. The Prime Minister's promise of a swift response today, that came out of Paris. Billions of dollars in products are sent to the United States from this country, and thousands of jobs are at stake. But it's not just Canada in the crosshairs. The EU and UK have also been targeted with tariffs. Now, what those countermeasures will be, we don't yet know. Justin Trudeau says the response will be coordinated with other nations, and Donald Trump is already threatening reciprocal tariffs. CTV's Rachel Aiello is in Paris with the Prime Minister, and Rachel, walk us through exactly what Trudeau said.
Sandy, after 2 days of dodging our questions about Trump's latest tariff threat, Trudeau told the traveling media this morning that Canada will retaliate if it comes to it.
Tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum would be entirely unjustified.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today slamming U.S. President Donald Trump's new steel and aluminum tariffs, stopping short of committing to a dollar-for-dollar retaliatory response.
If it comes to that, our response, of course, will be firm and clear.
It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again.
Trump signed an executive order that would impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, without exceptions. Canada did retaliate back in 2018, when similar measures were imposed during the NAFTA renegotiations before receiving a carve-out.
We will be working with the American administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts on Americans and Canadians of these unacceptable tariffs.
That work with the Americans began today at the summit that brought Trudeau and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance into the same room.
Why are you slapping tariffs? Are you serious about making Canada the 51st state, sir?
According to a senior government source, Trudeau and Vance briefly spoke, and the Prime Minister brought up how steel tariffs would impact Ohio, the Vice President's home state. With Canada-U.S. tensions strained, Trudeau said he plans to work with other world leaders who have also been impacted by Trump's latest trade action, such as the European Union, which has vowed the U.S. president's tariffs will not go unanswered. The Prime Minister has already been interacting with some of these allies on the sidelines of the summit, and others he may see tomorrow when the Prime Minister heads to Brussels. Sandy?
All right, Rachel in Paris. Canada's 13 premiers and territorial leaders are on a Convince America campaign to stop the trade war. They're in Washington on their first international trip together. CTV's Judy Trin is in the U.S. Capitol with them. And Judy, what is the group of 13 realistically hoping to accomplish, and what's been the response so far?
Sandy, as chair of the Council of the Federation for this year, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is leading the charge, but there's a feeling he's losing the fight.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford spoke about building a fortress AMCAN, with Canada and the U.S. uniting forces to stop China from ripping off Americans.
Let's protect against Chinese investment and ownership in strategically important sectors.
But there didn't appear to be a member of Donald Trump's team in the room. The event was co-hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, but the audience was mainly from Ontario, including this executive worried about the impact of Trump's new tariffs on steel and aluminum.
You worry about the best for our companies and our community and for our countries in general, so very stressful.
One trade lawyer who has spoken to members of Trump's administration says there's no stopping the economic war. Trump wants to build up domestic manufacturing and pressure Canada to renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement before it comes up for review next year.
You're on this inexorable march toward tariffs, but it doesn't mean that once tariffs are imposed and pain is felt and stock markets go down and prices go up, that the tariffs remain. Then there will be a question around reconsideration.
The worst thing we could do as a country is not show up. That sends a message to the president that we don't care. We care tremendously.
Canada has prepared a rollout of retaliatory tariffs, but for now, the premiers are talking more about diplomacy and less about brinkmanship. Sandy.
CTV's Judy Trin. Now, of the 13 steel plants operating in Canada, 6 are in Ontario, but a city in Manitoba is also bracing for a tariff impact.
Hundreds of jobs, hundreds of families in one community, very dramatically and negatively impacted. And you see that kind of across the sector, across the country.
The city of Selkirk, just north of Winnipeg, manufactures the bulk of steel Manitoba exports south of the border. Now, as steel is to Ontario, aluminum is to Quebec. The province is a key supplier of aluminum, with about 60% used in the U.S. coming from there, and it shows up in beer cans, computers, car parts. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin is at a small company that manufactures aluminum and steel poles. And Jen, what's been the reaction in Quebec to the tariffs?
Well, so many people say this is devastating, that it could have a major impact on the entire supply chain, Sandy. Here, this company is one of the ones that could be affected. What leaders are saying is that, in fact, the big smelters, the big companies, won't feel it quite as much as those medium and small businesses like this one. This is one that manufactures, as you say, streetlights, those poles there. They hold up street signs, hold up streetlights. What they do is they have aluminum that is from Quebec, but it's actually shipped to the United States for part of the processing and then brought back back here, so it could be significantly hit by these tariffs. And I can let you hear Bruno Mongrain, who is third generation in the aluminum industry in Quebec, talk about the impact on the company here.
Well, essentially, it's going to cut us off from the American market because we're getting priced out of this market. It's a significant rise on the price of our products, and we're simply not competitive anymore with this new tariff.
Story, but if we look at the bigger picture in terms of the whole province of Quebec, how much is this going to hurt the province?
Well, it's hard to tell. They say that in 2018 there was a significant impact. It's hard to really pinpoint exactly how much, but the tariff this time is much higher, so they're expecting this to be a major blow. The Premier of the province has been saying that these tariffs are unjustifiable. He is a part of that group of 13 that you were talking about with Judy there. He's meeting there with industry leaders as well, leaders of smelters, to really hammer down just how much of a blow this is going to be here and what to do about it, Sandy.
Okay, Genevieve, thank you. Now, since Donald Trump's threats have intensified, the political winds have shifted in Canada. And Nano's poll for CTV News shows that the gap is narrowing between the Conservatives and Liberals. CTV's Colton Prale is here to break down the numbers for us. And Colton, what do they tell us about the situation?
Well, if polling captures a moment in time, Sandy, then this moment is far more competitive than the political arena in Canada has been for months. Using Nanos research tracking, a month ago, the Conservatives soared 27 points above the Liberal government. That's the kind of lead that could have created the biggest single-party caucus in Canadian history. But new polling today shows that gap has closed to just 8 points, with the swing going mainly from the Conservatives to the Liberals, and little change in support for the NDP or the Bloc.
Two groups that have been moving towards the Liberals or back to the Liberals in the last few weeks. Women voters who had in December basically deserted the Liberals, they're coming back. Also in the province of Quebec, Liberal fortunes seem to be improving in the province of Quebec, where they're now pulling ahead of the Conservatives and are challenging the Bloc Québécois.
All right, so Colton, what is driving the change?
Well, Trudeau stepping down has absolutely been a factor, but the Nanos polling also shows a major shift in what it is that people are worried about. 4 weeks ago, Trump was a top concern for just 1% of respondents. A month later, it's the second highest polling issue, only behind the economy, and separate polling shows that when it comes to Trump, voters prefer Mark Carney to Pierre Poilievre. Now, at the same time, Sandy, in the background of all of this, there has been a Conservative reaction even prior to these numbers coming out. We're seeing a shift in Conservative messaging to include a more patriotic slogan centered around Canada first. Sandy?
Now, we also heard from Mark Carney today during a stop in Regina, where the leadership contender noted that tariffs will also hurt Americans.
Here in Canada, we understand very well the laws of economics. We understand the importance that we should be and we must be masters in our own home, controlling our economic destiny to build the strongest economy in the G7.
Carney accused Donald Trump of violating Canada's trade deal with the U.S. with his steel and aluminum tariffs. Earlier today, Carney's main challenger, Chrystia Freeland, promised to cut income taxes for 11 million Canadians. She's also planning to cut the GST from new homes for first-time buyers on houses worth up to $1.5 million. Coming up after the break, stealing grocery staples.
That's what we're dealing with, organized crime.
What's behind the spike in major thefts of foods like eggs and olive oil? Plus, the road to the Junos, from pop to country, a look at Canada's top contenders. The Prime Minister has announced the appointment of a new fentanyl czar, effective immediately. Kevin Brosseau served with the Mounties for more than 20 years and was recently a security and intelligence advisor to Justin Trudeau. In this new role, the Prime Minister says he'll work closely with U.S. counterparts to fight the fentanyl trade. Now, an increase in thefts recently of grocery staples, hot commodities like butter, cheese, and eggs. The latest target, more than $1 million worth of olive oil, was stolen from a Montreal trucking company. CTV's Heather Wright now on the worrying phenomenon in Canada and the U.S. Heather.
Sandy, the numbers are truly dizzying. $1 million worth of olive oil, $60,000 worth of butter, and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cheese. Now, food thefts are not necessarily new, but experts say they appear to be happening more often and often involve organized crime.
The most recent high-profile incident in Canada involves more than 100 pallets of olive oil that were sent by a Montreal company to a client but never arrived. Police say Transport Q Trans, a transportation company, had transferred the olive oil to another company that had special heated trailers. That second company is now being investigated. While olive oil is sometimes referred to as liquid gold, it's not the only food being stolen and sold on the black market. Last month, 6 people in Ontario were charged after $60,000 worth of butter was stolen. And amid soaring egg prices in the United States, $40,000 worth of organic eggs were stolen from a trailer in Pennsylvania.
It's really about higher prices creating a black market and headlines getting organized crime to get organized and focus on some products. And that seems to be the pattern right now.
Experts say the thieves often have a buyer lined up before the heist even takes place, and when possible, dilute the product to be able to sell more of it. Sandy.
CTV's Heather Wright. Canadian company Shopify has deactivated a website Kanye West used to sell T-shirts with swastikas. The T-shirt store on Kanye's Yeezy website was powered by Shopify and sold the anti-Semitic shirts for more than 24 hours before it was taken down. Shopify says the musician violated its terms.
Oh, I'm sorry that you love me. Change my mind up like a origami.
And the Juno nominations are out. Tate McRae is tied for overall lead. The Alberta singer picked up 5 nominations, including Single Album and Artist of the Year. Country star Josh Ross is the other leading contender. The Ontario country star is also up for 5 Juno Awards, which will be given out at the end of March. Still ahead, bracing for a winter wallop. Tracking the path of a major storm, which parts of Canada could get hit the hardest?
Tomorrow on CTV National News.
It's pretty fast-paced.
A critical shift in nursing.
Being able to help the community in which I live.
Why this Canadian university is changing course. Tomorrow on CTV National News and ctvnews.ca.
Don't be surprised if your home insurance goes up this year, and you can thank wild weather around the country.
It seems to be prone to everything from hurricanes to hail, wildfire, flooding across most of the country. And what that means is that no place is really safe, and it's a riskier place to live, work, and insure.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada says rates are going up for everyone, not just those who filed a claim. The group says weather-related losses last summer hit more than $7 billion, and that included flooding in Ontario and Quebec, the Jasper wildfire, and the Calgary hailstorm. Well, millions of Canadians are in the path of a major winter storm. The snow just keeps piling up. The blast of winter is also behind a special weather statement for the Maritimes. CTV's Atlantic meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell is here now to time it all out for us. Kaylin.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. Well, many over the next couple of days in Ontario, Quebec, and parts of Atlantic Canada are going to be reaching for the snow shovels and snow blowers. Texas low or low pressure system moving out of Texas, coming up through southern Ontario, up through the St. Lawrence River Valley, and then into the Maritime region. As far as the timing of this weather system goes, weather conditions are expected to deteriorate as we move through Wednesday evening, night, into very early Thursday morning across much of southern Ontario. Thursday morning in southern Quebec, Thursday morning into afternoon for the Maritime provinces, and then after that, late Thursday into early Friday, locations in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, this weather system is expected to feature a lengthy band of some snowfall amounts approaching or exceeding 30 centimeters. That looks like it'll get started to the west and north of Toronto, extend up through eastern areas of Ontario, through southern Quebec, and then into northern areas of New Brunswick. And with that type of forecast, as you'd expect, we already have extensive winter storm watches and weather statements in effect. We want to monitor those because I do expect many will be upgraded to warnings over the next couple of days. Sandy.
All right. Thank you, Kaylin. After the break, squeezing out a longer season. How Canadian citrus farms are pushing the limits of what can be homegrown. A BC citrus grower is pushing the boundaries on crops that can survive a harsh winter. After years of experimentation, her orchard is bearing fruit. And in the face of tariffs, it's providing a timely example of homegrown ingenuity. CTV's Andrew Johnson is here to show us how this is possible. Over to you, Andrew.
Sandy, inside this Salt Spring Island greenhouse, you'll find a bounty of fresh produce. And it's not the sort of stuff you'd expect could survive a Canadian winter.
They're doing really well. Look at the leaf quality is just amazing.
This is Jane Squire's subtropical happy place.
This is a special little hardy guava.
About 10 years ago, the semi-retired horticulturalist wondered if she could grow her own citrus on Canada's west coast. Turns out she can.
I grow 35 varieties of citrus, and most of them are in production. There's oranges and lemons and limes and grapefruits. We are moving into the avocados.
And yes, avocados to die for.
I have a couple of friends from California I've given them some fruit, and they've said, yeah, that's probably the nicest avocado they've ever eaten. It's very oily, very nutty.
Squire's not only plucking fruit from these trees in the middle of winter, she's also doing it on the cheap.
My power bill for the whole farm is pretty much like a single-family home.
She credits regenerative soil techniques. She's big on compost and mulch and doesn't use fertilizer or pesticide. An energy curtain hanging above the citrus grove cuts heat loss by about 40%. Squire keeps the temperature inside from falling below 1 degree Celsius using a hydronic system fueled by a wood-burning furnace.
Hot water goes in here from that furnace and heats this water up, and then the heat comes off the pool, just naturally comes up, and the fan over there takes the heat and circulates it around the greenhouse.
It's a setup literally bearing fruit as Canadians look to become more self-sufficient in the wake of tariff threats.
We have a lot of very progressive growers here that just haven't had people paying attention to them, to the possibilities.
Jane Squire believes it could be cost-effective to scale up subtropical fruit production here in the Great White North. And some of the techniques used inside this citrus orchard could pave the way. Sandy.
Nice. Okay, Andrew, thank you. And thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Rinaldo. We'll see you tomorrow, we hope. Bye for now.